What's going on, fight fans? It's Luke back again for another Draftkings MMA preview, this time for UFC Vegas 33. We got some pretty nice fights this weekend, not so much name recognition per se, but a lot of up and coming prospects, people that have KO power, submission threats all over, and overall I think it's going to be a very profitable slate for Draftkings MMA. On top of the slugfest that we also have a fight up top that's very interesting. It's going to be an absolute war on the feet, so I'm really looking forward to that. That is between Uriah Hall and Sean Strickland. Our co-main event as well is very intriguing as well. The co-main event was scrapped. That had Chris Dawkins in it. Now, though, it has Rani Yanya, and it also has a very interesting matchup against another grappler from South Korea in Kang. Both of those fights I'm very much looking forward to. I'm going to be identifying a fighter from both of those fights in my picks as well, so look forward to that. My goal of the video, though, in general, is to give you my top 6 picks for GPP contests for DraftKings MMA this weekend. My goal is to give you the highest potential plays, people that are going to go out, get knockouts in the first or second round, or are going to go out and put up a huge fantasy score in terms of takedowns, control time, that kind of thing. I'm not looking for people that are going to likely just win. That's not good enough for me. Just getting a decision win or even a third round knockout's not going to get the job done for GPP. You're looking for those ceiling performances, the kind of stuff that you score over 100, 110 points. That's what this video is meant for. This type of analysis is rooted in my data-based approach. As always, I take a look at the data side of things rather than the biased opinion side of things. Obviously, there's going to be some speculation involved. There's going to be some narrative involved from time to time, but I try to rely on the cold, hard facts. I don't just cover the UFC, though. I implement that same data-based approach to take on the PGA Tour, the NBA, NFL, and even more. So if you're looking for even more data-based content, make sure to check out my content for all of that. With all that out of the way, though, let's hop into the picks for this weekend. At number 6, we have Yanan, a $7,100 fighter. She is plus 175 against Nico Montano, and she's somebody who gives you a lot of salary relief, priced really low down at $7,100, but she also has really nice finishing upside against Montano, who is coming off an extended break in multiple surgeries over the last few years. Like I just said, Montano hasn't fought for quite some time. Obviously, last week out, we saw TJ Dillashaw come back from an extended break and fight very well. We also saw the week before that Miesha Tate do the same thing. So I'm not necessarily holding it against Montano very much. My main issue is the surgeries. Not only has she had time off, a lot of that has been to fix issues with her back. She's had issues with her shoulders as well. And while Yanan hasn't necessarily broken through, she's not some up-and-coming massive prospect in that women's division there. She's somebody who's had a lot of success in getting finishes. She has finished a whopping 82% of her fights by finish on the feet. She's also a very live underdog in this situation. Right now, she's a plus 175 underdog. I think she should be much closer to even money in this matchup. Obviously, we haven't seen Nico in a very long time. She has a much higher pedigree than somebody like Yanan. But given her power in her hands, her propensity to get finishes, in women's MMA, it's not very common that you see somebody with an 82% finish rate. So as a result, I'm definitely going to be targeting that in GPPs this weekend. At number 5, we have Bryan Bam Bam Barbarena coming in as the most expensive fighter on the slate at $9,600. And he also has a very hefty betting price tag at minus 270. A lot of that has to do with who he's fighting against, not necessarily Bam Bam's power. He's fighting against Jason Witt, who has probably the softest chin in all of the division. Last time out, Jason Witt was knocked out in one punch by Semselberger. Quite literally, the first punch that landed knocked him out cold. And this time out, he gets an absolute banger in a fighter in Bam Bam. He's fought the biggest, baddest people in the division, Colby Covington, Vicente Luque, other former champions as well. And as a result, he's going to be one of my highest owned fighters on the slate. Bam Bam finishes 80% of his fights. He's averages over 90 fantasy points per contest on DraftKings as well. That includes a fair share amount of losses over that span. Like I said, I think he's a very safe fighter. He's also a very high upside fighter. I think there's a very good chance he finishes the fight in the first minute and 30 seconds. Obviously, you get a huge, massive bonus on DraftKings for doing so. So a lot of people are going to be targeting him as a result. That ownership is the only reason he's not like my number one play on the slate. He's probably going to be owned in the 40, maybe even 50% range for GPPs. So you're almost going to have to lock him in to get leverage on him. I'm going to be right around the field on him. He's not going to make or break my night. I know he's going to go out there, likely put up a really big score. But there's a lot of opportunity cost to be had with that ownership number. At number 4, we have Ronnie Lawrence, an $8,700 fighter who's a minus 150 favorite against Trevin Jones. This is a fight that materialized late, something that was thrown together over the last week, but does not lack intrigue. It's not something that was just thrown together. It's not a bad fight by any means. On the Ronnie Lawrence side, you get fantasy point galore. He's a guy who averages over 15 minutes, 10.86 takedowns per contest. In DraftKings, that is absolute gold. That is almost 55 points per contest right there, only with that statistic alone. And not only is he a high output striker, he's high output wrestler. He lands plenty of punches on the feet. He's not somebody who just relies on those takedowns. He has very good. He has a very good jab. He has very good kicks at range as well. On the other side of the fight, though, you get a ton of firepower in Trevin Jones. He's somebody I considered taking at the beginning of the week. But the more and more I looked into Jones, the more it became apparent that the KOs may be a little bit of an aberration, not necessarily a trend with him. Over his career, he only has 3 KOs to his name in his 17 starts. 2 of those coming in the UFC of late. So there's a lot, not even just a little bit of recency bias involved there. Again, Lawrence, I expect him to go out, have a very high output affair. He wins the fight 1,000% of the time that it goes to decision. There is no way that Trevin Jones can win a decision against a guy like Lawrence. He's going to need to get that KO. So while that makes Trevin Jones a little bit favorable and a little bit attractive in the GPP sphere, Ronnie Lawrence has even more potential in my mind. If he goes out there, gets the decision win, you're looking at a 100 to 30, maybe even 140 fantasy point performance. On the other side, you got Trevin Jones. Obviously, if he gets a first or second round KO, you're looking at around 100, 110 points. So I definitely like targeting this matchup. I'm going to have somebody from this matchup in every lineup that I have. I would also very much so bet the under on this matchup. At number 3, we have Rani Yanya, a $7,700 fighter who is a plus 115 underdog, actually, against Kang Yeo Kang. This is one of the fights I was talking about before that I am absolutely stoked to watch. It is the co-main event for this card. And I really like the Ronnie side of the fight, especially considering the lack of action that we've seen from Kang. Lack of action that we've seen from Kang. He had a 4-year stretch from 2014 to 2018 where he didn't fight due to his mandatory military service in South Korea. If you guys are following my golf content, you've probably seen that the 2 golfers from South Korea are under a very similar situation. If they don't medal, they have to go spend 3 or 4 years of their life in the military, which severely will derail their career. That very much so happened to Kang. He's been in the organization for 9 years, only has 8 fights to his name. A lot of that has to do with COVID and that military suspension. He hasn't been able to come to fight in America since 2018. So we haven't seen him fight very much at all. On the other side, Ronnie has been somebody who has a ton of action in the UFC, is always looking for a fight, will always even take them on short notice, which is something that he's not against. Not against at all, guys. And if you take a look at Kang, he's somebody who, stylistically doesn't have a very good matchup here against Yaya. He's somebody who wrestles for the most part. He'll, use his jab in that first round. He's able to fight at range. But as soon as he, starts to get a little bit tired, he relies on what he does. And that's wrestling. He goes in, goes for the takedown. The unfortunate part with Yaya is that he's an absolute submission artist. He's somebody who goes for takedowns in the middle of transition. So he'll actually invite takedowns, go for guillotine chokes. He'll invite takedowns, go for people's legs, look for submissions that way. And he's very, very dangerous against guys like Kang for that reason. Obviously, he's an underdog for a reason. He's only a slight underdog as of this point. Even though the money line has started to sway towards Kang a little bit, I really do like Ronnie's chances to get a submission in this fight. And at $7,700, at relatively low ownership, he would be a very nice play in GPP contests. If you take a look at his finishing record, he has finished 78% of his fights by submission. So like I said, an absolute submission artist and somebody I'm targeting on DraftKings. And at number 2, we have Sean Strickland. He is a $9,300 fighter, a minus 210 favorite against Uriah Hall. And Strickland's my number 2 fighter on the card, and it's going to be an absolutely exciting fight as well. Both of the fighters in this fight have said it's going to be a war on the feet. They both know that both of them are good strikers. Both of them want to strike on the feet. And I don't expect there to be any wrestling in this fight. There might be a little bit of clinch situations, especially from the Sean Strickland side. Sometimes he likes to enforce himself against the side of the cage and whatnot. But he's a hands-first type fighter. He's somebody who has a very good takedown defense as well. He has an 80% takedown defense. So even if he's piecing up Uriah Hall on the feet, even if he's absolutely handing it to him, The fight's not going to the ground. He has an 80% takedown defense, and Uriah Hall does not have elite wrestling for that size. So he's going to be forced to throw hands on the feet. He's going to be forced to stand on his feet and throw hands. And if we take a look at the striking numbers, Uriah Hall is going to get outpaced severely by Sean Strickland. Strickland averages over 5 strikes per minute. Uriah Hall is right around the 3.5 per minute mark. And Strickland hits with all of his strikes with power. He's somebody who puts everything he has into almost all his strikes. He's looking for that KO on almost every single strike that he has. Uriah Hall is at the end of his career, somebody who doesn't have the cardio that he used to. We've seen him gassed in the second, third rounds of fights coming into this fight. Sean Strickland, up and coming, young guy who never seems to look tired. I look for a 4th or 5th round finish TKO by Sean Strickland, if not earlier in the fight. If it ends up going the distance, Sean Strickland, with that 5 significant strike per minute mark, he's going to average more than that in a war like this on the feet. You're looking at about 150 significant strikes landed. That kind of mark would be more than enough to pay off in a GPP. But yet again, I don't even think it makes it to a decision. I think he finishes it in the 3rd or 4th round. And at number 1, we have my favorite play on the slate. That is Melsik Baghdasaryan. Cannot say his name. I'll have to get it right because this is a guy we're going to be seeing in the UFC for quite some time. He's $8,600, a -135 favorite against Colin Anglin. And I think that should be like a -400, -500 number. He's my number 1 pick. He has a total 1 and 2 second fight time in his 4 MMA KO victories. A minute total fight time for 4 victories. That is nuts. He has 2 finishes inside 9 seconds. That is the kind of power that you get from this guy, Melsik. He's somebody who had an impressive KO as well on the Dana White Contender Series, and he looks to make another splash against another standout in Colin Anglin. Anglin's more of a wrestling specialist, somebody who likes to win via control time, via decision. He does have very impressive wrestling, some submissions as well. But unfortunately for him, he's not going to get to show it off. Melsik has unbelievable power. He's not somebody who's very new to the scene either. He's not a spring chicken by any means. He has experience in the boxing realm, in kickboxing. He also has experience in jiu-jitsu. So he's been all over the place in terms of MMA. He's been building up his career, getting better and better and better. He obviously has those insane knockouts on his record of late. And he's just been biding his time to get good enough to come into the UFC and really, really make a splash. I expect a first-round KO in this fight. I also expect it to be in the first minute. He is that kind of power. He comes out like an absolute bull. It's scary. Like if you were sitting in front of this guy fighting, you would just run away. Like he does not stop. He's going to throw power punches every single time for the first minute, probably about 50 of them. It's going to be funny to see. That's why he comes in at number 1. I look for him to get that early knockout and to be the best play on the slate. That's all I've got for this week's UFC preview. As always, make sure to like and subscribe if you guys enjoyed the content. It really helps me out, and also make sure that you guys can catch my content as soon as I post it. Good luck with your DFS lineups. Let's win some cash. I'll see you guys next week. Let me know how it goes.